Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all the new viewers who are just discovering this space where history, mystery, and life-changing discoveries come together, because today we are diving deep into one of the most unbelievable and shocking stories in modern American coin history, a story that starts with the simple copper penny that millions of people have held in their hands, ignored, spent, or lost in couch cushions, yet under the right circumstances can be worth more than luxury mansions, private islands, and generational fortunes combined. And that coin is the 1968 mint-marked D1 USA coin, a penny that most people think is ordinary, common, and nearly worthless, but which under rare conditions and extraordinary errors has reached legendary status with valuations that climb as high as $23 million. Yes, you heard that right. $23 million for a single penny. And today we are going to explore every angle, every possibility, every minting mistake, error combination, historical context, metal composition issue, striking anomaly, and survival factor that could transform this humble Denver minted cent into one of the most valuable coins on earth. So sit back, stay with me, and imagine for a moment that the penny in your pocket could quietly be holding a secret that would change your life forever. The year 1968 was a pivotal moment in United States coinage history, a time of transition, experimentation, and pressure at the U.S. Mint, because just a few years earlier in 1965 the Mint had removed silver from circulating dimes and quarters, collectors were hoarding older coins, demand for cents was massive due to inflation and population growth, and the Mint was producing billions of pennies at a pace never seen before, and when production pressure rises, quality control often suffers. Which is exactly where the seeds of extreme rarity are planted, because errors are born not from intention but from chaos, speed, worn equipment, human oversight, and experimental materials, and the Denver Mint in 1968 was operating at full throttle, striking over 4 billion cents that year, using newly restored mint marks after a brief period when mint marks were removed to discourage hoarding, making the 1968 D penny historically significant from the very start. But what truly elevates it into the realm of multi-million-dollar legend is not the date or the mint mark alone, but the extraordinary convergence of multiple high-value minting errors and mistakes that, when found together on a single coin, create a perfect storm of numismatic rarity. One of the most critical factors that can push a 1968 D penny into extreme value territory is the possibility of being struck on the wrong planchet, and this is where the story becomes truly mind-blowing, because during 1968 the Mint was still handling planchets for multiple denominations and even foreign coins under contract. And if a 1-cent die accidentally struck a planchet intended for a different denomination, such as a dime, or more astonishingly a leftover silver planchet, or a foreign alloyed blank, the resulting coin would be an instant numismatic superstar. And if that wrong planchet strike also carried additional errors like a double die or off-center strike, the value could skyrocket into the millions, especially if the metal composition tested as something extraordinary like silver, aluminum, or experimental alloys that were never meant for circulation. Because experimental planchets are among the rarest items in U.S. Mint history, often destroyed before release, and a surviving example represents a breach in Mint security and protocol that collectors will pay almost any price to own. Another monumental error possibility tied to the 1968 D penny is the double die averse or reverse, where the coin design is doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process. And while minor doubling is common and often worthless, true hub doubling with strong, clear separation in the lettering, date, and Lincoln's profile is extremely rare. And when such doubling appears on a high production year like 1968, collectors know that the dies were pushed beyond their limits, increasing the likelihood of dramatic, bold doubling, and if a previously unknown or ultra-low population double die variety were discovered today with the D mint mark, fully authenticated and graded in pristine condition, it could rewrite price records entirely, because the numismatic market thrives on newly discovered varieties, and the first example of a spectacular error often commands the highest price. Especially when paired with a compelling story of discovery, such as a coin pulled from circulation decades later or found in an inherited collection where its significance went unnoticed for generations. Then there is the possibility of a major off-metal error, such as a 1968 penny struck on a bronze alloy that deviates significantly from the standard copper composition used that year, because although 1968 cents were officially composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, variations in alloy mixtures, contamination, or the accidental use of leftover planchets from previous or experimental batches could result in unusual weight, color, magnetic properties, and acoustic signatures. And collectors and metallurgists place enormous value on coins that test outside official specifications, especially when those tests are conducted by reputable grading services and independent labs, because metal composition errors are irrefutable physical evidence of mint anomalies, and when such a coin is unique, or one of only a handful known, the price becomes whatever a billionaire collector is willing to pay to secure exclusivity. Another crucial error category that can elevate the 1968 penny into the $23 million conversation is the presence of a dramatic off-center strike combined with a retained cut or broad strike, where the coin is struck without a proper collar, causing the metal to spread outward, creating an oversized, distorted coin with missing or duplicated design elements. And while minor off-center strikes are collectible but affordable, extreme off-center strikes that still show the full date and mint mark, especially when combined with additional errors like die cracks, die breaks, or multiple strikes, are extraordinarily rare, and rarity multiplied by condition equals astronomical value, because most error coins entered circulation and were damaged, cleaned, or destroyed, making high-grade survivors nearly mythical. Die cracks and die breaks themselves are another fascinating aspect of the 1968 penny's potential value, because as dies wear down from striking millions of coins, they develop cracks that eventually break off, leaving raised lines or missing design elements on the coins they strike. And while small cracks are common, massive retained cuts where large portions of the die break away and remain attached during striking are rare, dramatic, and highly sought after, and when such a cut appears on a Lincoln cent, it can dramatically alter Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, or even erase parts of the date, creating a one-of-a-kind visual anomaly that collectors find irresistible, especially if the coin can be traced to a specific late-stage die that was used briefly before being retired, limiting the number of examples that could ever exist. The Denver Mint's working conditions in 1968 also opened the door to another category of high-value mistakes known as mint mark anomalies, because although the D mint mark was hand-punched into the die at that time, variations in placement, size, tilt, and even doubling of the mint mark occurred, and while minor repunched mint marks are known, a dramatic misplaced, inverted, or doubled mint mark on a 1968 penny, especially one previously undocumented, would ignite a feeding frenzy among variety collectors, because mint mark errors represent direct human interaction with the die, a tangible fingerprint of the mint worker who made a mistake decades ago, and collectors place immense value on these human errors frozen in metal. One of the most controversial and exciting possibilities surrounding the 1968 penny is the rumored existence of transitional error pieces, where a coin is struck using a die or planchet intended for a different year or composition, such as an experimental aluminum cent planchet similar to those tested in the early 1970s. Or even a mule error where mismatched obverse and reverse dies are paired incorrectly. And while no officially confirmed mule involving a 1968 cent has been publicly recorded, the mere possibility fuels speculation and keeps collectors searching, because history has shown time and again that the mint's archives do not always tell the full story, and coins once thought impossible have surfaced decades later, authenticated, slabbed, and sold for record-breaking sums. Condition plays an enormous role in pushing values into the stratosphere, because a 1968 penny with extraordinary errors but heavy wear might be worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands, but a pristine, mint-state example graded MS-67, MS-68, or higher by a top grading service becomes a trophy coin, and when a trophy coin is also unique, or nearly unique, it enters the realm of private treaty sales, where prices are not limited by auction estimates but by ego, prestige. Next, 1989 No Mint Mark 1 cent USA coin, a penny that in the right conditions has achieved near mythical status with valuations reaching $12 million, yes $12 million for a single penny, A number that shocks the imagination and transforms the way we think about what ordinary coins are really worth. And today we are going to explore every possible reason, every subtle mistake, every historical circumstance, every minting anomaly, and every chance occurrence that could turn this tiny piece of copper into a treasure of staggering financial and cultural significance. So settle in and imagine for a moment that the coins in your pocket could hide secrets worth more than mansions, luxury cars, or even entire estates. Because the 1989 no-mint mark cent is not just a coin, it is a symbol of what can happen when human error, mechanical imperfection, historical circumstance, and scarcity collide in the most spectacular way imaginable, creating a collectible that defies ordinary logic and commands prices that seem almost unreal. The year 1989 was a pivotal moment for the United States Mint, because it was a time when the Mint was handling enormous production pressures. Millions of coins were being struck daily to meet both circulation and collector demand, and every penny mattered in the calculations of both materials and labor. And in the midst of this massive industrial process, errors were bound to slip through, creating the rarest and most valuable varieties for collectors and investors alike, because the very nature of high-volume production is that mistakes, whether human, mechanical, or material, are inevitable, and when those mistakes are preserved rather than destroyed, they become historical artifacts with extraordinary appeal. One of the primary reasons the 1989 no-mint mark penny can reach valuations in the millions is the potential for wrong planchet strikes, where a penny is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even another metal composition. And while most pennies are struck on standard 95% copper and 5% zinc planchets, the possibility exists that during the busy operations of the late 1980s, a blank intended for another purpose could have been mistakenly fed into the press, resulting in a coin with unusual weight, color, or metallic properties, and such an anomaly, once authenticated, instantly becomes priceless because it is physically unique, represents a documented breach of Mint protocol, and cannot be replicated without the exact conditions that produced it decades ago, a scenario that enthralls collectors and drives prices upward into extraordinary territory. Another factor contributing to the extreme value of this coin is the occurrence of double die errors, where the coin's obverse or reverse appears doubled due to misalignment during die creation, and while minor doubling is common and often of limited value, dramatic doubling affecting the date, lettering, or Lincoln's portrait can make a coin one of a kind, especially if it appears in a no-mint mark 1989 cent, a coin that is already a transitional piece from the previous decade, and when discovered in mint-state condition, fully certified by a trusted grading service, it becomes an object of desire among the highest echelon of collectors and numismatic investors, because rarity multiplied by condition and verification equals astronomical pricing potential. The 1989 penny also has the potential for off-center strikes, broad strikes, and cut formations, all of which can dramatically increase value, because when a coin is struck without a proper collar or with misaligned dies, the metal spreads irregularly, creating distorted but visually compelling variations that are highly sought after by collectors, particularly when the coin still displays a fully legible date and significant design elements, because the combination of unusual strike and aesthetic appeal transforms a mere penny into a museum-worthy collectible, and when only one or a handful of such examples are known, prices move into the multi-million-dollar range. Die cracks and die breaks are another compelling factor for collectors, because as the dies used in 1989 became worn from striking millions of coins, they developed cracks and breaks that transferred unique raised lines, missing sections, or altered features onto the coins, and while minor cracks are collectible, major retained cuts or dramatic die breaks create truly one-of-a-kind visual anomalies that cannot be replicated, and when these appear on a coin like the 1989 no-mint mark penny, they generate enormous interest due to their rarity, historical context, and the dramatic evidence of the mint's internal processes, which is precisely what drives the value to extreme levels. Mint mark anomalies are also central to the story of this coin, because while most 1989 pennies carried a D or P mint mark, the no mint mark variety represents a distinct production anomaly that already makes it rarer than its standard counterparts. And if this no mint mark penny also shows repunching, doubling, misplacement, or inversion of design elements. It exponentially increases desirability, because collectors prize coins that carry unique signatures of human error, mechanical mishap, and historical happenstance, making the combination of a no-mint mark 1989 cent with other significant anomalies a numismatic holy grail. Furthermore, the concept of transitional era coins plays a critical role, because the late 1980s were a period of experimentation with planchet alloys, dye materials, and striking techniques, and there exists the tantalizing possibility that a 1989 no-mint mark penny could have been struck using a die intended for a different year or with a planchet from an experimental batch, producing a mule or hybrid error that defies normal classification, and when such coins surface, they often shatter previous market expectations, because collectors value not only rarity and condition but also historical intrigue and evidence of mint experimentation that was never officially released. Condition is another decisive element in determining the value of this coin, because while a worn or circulated error may only be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, a mint state example with flawless surfaces, full luster, sharp details, and no post-mint damage enters a completely different league, because it is not just a coin but a trophy, a centerpiece, and an irreplaceable artifact of American industrial history, and collectors understand that only perfect examples survive. Decades of circulation, mishandling, and environmental degradation, which is why mint state survivors command premiums that can reach millions, especially when combined with multiple high-value error types on a single coin. Provenance and documented ownership further elevate the coin's value, because a piece discovered in a famous hoard, traced back to a legendary collection, or accompanied by original mint correspondence, packaging, or archival information becomes more than metal and design. It becomes a tangible story that collectors can connect with, a narrative that enhances emotional appeal, credibility, and market demand. Because rare coins with strong provenance are often seen as both financial assets and cultural treasures, and buyers are willing to pay extraordinary sums to acquire a piece with history, especially when it has remained hidden, unrecognized, or misunderstood for decades before its discovery, creating a sense of mystery and excitement that amplifies perceived value. The psychology of scarcity also plays a huge role, because the 1989 no-mint mark penny exists within a massive circulation series where most coins are common and inexpensive, and when one extraordinary anomaly surfaces, the contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary captures the imagination of collectors and investors alike, generating frenzied interest and competition. Because humans are naturally drawn to rare objects, particularly when the rarity is coupled with demonstrable value, aesthetic appeal, and historical significance, and in the context of the numismatic market, this psychological dynamic drives prices upward to levels that often seem disconnected from material value alone, which is exactly why the 1989 no-mint mark penny can reach $12 million. Authentication and professional grading are critical, because without the rigorous testing, verification, and certification provided by top grading services, even the most remarkable coin might be dismissed or undervalued, and collectors know that certification ensures legitimacy, protects investment, and validates the rarity of the coin, creating a trusted framework in which multi-million-dollar valuations are credible and enforceable in both private sales and auctions. And when a coin like the 1989 no-mint mark penny is slabbed and certified with high-grade and confirmed errors, it enters the realm of ultra-elite collectibles, where supply is fixed, demand is high, and price is determined by what the market is willing to pay for exclusivity. Metal composition anomalies also add significant value. Next, 1996 mint mark D 1 cent USA coin, a seemingly simple Lincoln penny that under extraordinary circumstances can be worth a staggering $10 million. Yes, $10 million for a coin that most people would toss in a jar or hand over at the grocery store without a second thought. And today we are going to examine every factor, every error, every minting anomaly, every historical and technical detail, and every chance occurrence that could transform this humble Denver minted cent into a numismatic legend. So imagine for a moment that the coins you see every day could hide secrets that might rival the value of luxury estates, rare artworks, or even private collections, because the 1990 60 penny is not just a coin, it is a symbol of how errors, rarity, condition, and provenance converge to create extraordinary value, and it is a coin that tells a story of human error, industrial imperfection, and the unpredictable forces of chance that have made certain pennies into treasures worth millions. The year 1996 was a significant year for the United States Mint, a year when the production of coins was massive, when the mint faced high circulation demands, and when quality control, although rigorous, was not immune to mistakes, because even in the most technologically advanced and carefully monitored mints, human error, mechanical anomalies, and production irregularities occur. And it is precisely these anomalies that give rise to coins of extreme rarity and value, because while millions of standard 1990 60 pennies were struck and distributed into circulation, a tiny fraction encountered unique circumstances that made them completely different from all the others, and it is this tiny fraction that has captivated the imaginations of collectors and fueled multi-million-dollar valuations. One of the primary contributors to the value of the 1990 60 penny is the possibility of being struck on a wrong planchet, a scenario in which a penny die accidentally strikes a blank intended for a different denomination, a foreign coin, or an experimental planchet, and during the late 20th century, the mint was experimenting with various planchet compositions, alloys, and production techniques, meaning the potential for an unusual metallic composition existed, and when a surviving coin exhibits an unexpected alloy, unusual weight, or color deviation from the standard 95% copper and 5% zinc composition, it becomes immediately compelling to collectors, because such a coin represents an unrepeatable event in U.S. mint history, and its uniqueness is precisely what can push its market value into the millions. Double die errors also play a critical role in the 1990 60 penny's legendary status, because when the obverse or reverse design is doubled due to misalignment during die creation, particularly when it affects the date, lettering, or Lincoln's portrait, the coin becomes a one-of-a-kind collectible, and while minor doubling is common and often minimally valuable, dramatic doubling is rare, highly visible, and highly sought after, especially when it occurs on a mint-marked penny from 1996, because collectors prize coins that reveal the workings and imperfections of the mint itself, and dramatic double dies in combination with other anomalies can transform a coin from ordinary to priceless, creating a piece that is as visually compelling as it is historically significant. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, and cut formations are additional factors that can elevate the 1990 60 penny to extraordinary value, because when a coin is struck without proper alignment, or with a die malfunction, the resulting distortions create visually striking anomalies, and when these distortions still display a fully readable date and mint mark, the coin becomes not only rare but also aesthetically appealing, drawing collectors who value both uniqueness and beauty, and when such a coin is found in mint state condition, it becomes a trophy piece that commands attention and extreme valuations in the marketplace, because rarity, condition, and visual appeal combined are the pillars of ultra-high-value numismatics. Die cracks and die breaks are yet another fascinating aspect, because as dies age and wear out from striking millions of coins, cracks and breaks develop, transferring raised lines, missing sections, or irregular features onto the coins they strike, and while small cracks are relatively common, major retained cuds and dramatic die breaks are exceedingly rare, and when such features appear on a 1990 60 penny, they create a visually dramatic, scientifically verifiable, and historically significant anomaly that collectors are willing to pay millions to acquire, particularly if the coin can be traced back to a specific die or a short production run, ensuring that only a handful of examples exist in the world. Mint mark anomalies are equally important, because the Denver D mint mark was applied with precision, but variations in placement, doubling, inversion, or repunching occurred in rare cases, and a dramatic mint mark error on a 1996 penny, particularly one previously undocumented, would instantly capture collector attention. Because mint mark errors are direct evidence of human intervention in the minting process, offering a tangible story of mistake, oversight, and opportunity frozen in metal. And when combined with other high-value errors, these anomalies create a coin that is nearly impossible to replicate, enhancing both rarity and value. transitional era possibilities are also part of the allure, because the mid-1990s saw the mint experimenting with striking techniques, dye materials, and planchet compositions, which means a 1990-60 penny could have been accidentally struck with a die from another year, or even paired incorrectly with a reverse die from a different production run, creating a mule, hybrid, or experimental error. And when such coins surface, they generate enormous interest because they challenge existing records, expand the known universe of anomalies, and provide a tangible link to the mint's internal operations, all of which contribute to their multi-million-dollar valuations. Condition plays a decisive role, because a worn or circulated error might only be worth thousands, but a mint-state coin with flawless surfaces, original luster, sharp strike details, and no post-mint damage transforms the same error into an iconic collectible, because collectors and investors alike understand that mint-state survivors are rare due to circulation, mishandling, and environmental factors. And that rarity compounded with error type and uniqueness drives the price dramatically higher, often into the realm of millions of dollars, as is the case with the 1990-60 penny. Provenance further amplifies value, because a coin discovered in a notable hoard, previously owned by a respected collector, or accompanied by documentation and historical context becomes more than a coin. It becomes a story, a cultural artifact, and a verifiable treasure, and collectors are willing to pay a premium for coins with clear provenance because they carry both monetary and emotional significance, creating a market where authenticity, rarity, and history converge to produce extraordinary prices. The psychology of scarcity also underpins the extraordinary valuations, because the Lincoln cent is one of the most widely circulated and collected coins in the United States, and when a rare anomaly emerges within this familiar series, it draws intense interest and competition, because the contrast between commonality and extreme rarity amplifies perceived value. And collectors and investors understand that opportunity is finite, and that acquiring a unique coin like a 1990-60 mint error may be a once-in-a-lifetime chance, further driving prices toward $10 million. Authentication and professional grading are critical in this process, because a coin's market value depends on verified rarity, condition, and error types, and a professionally slabbed coin provides collectors with assurance that the coin is genuine, its grade is accurate, and its anomalies are fully documented, which allows it to enter high-end private sales or auctions where multi-million-dollar transactions are not only possible but expected, because buyers are competing for exclusivity and certainty in a global market of sophisticated numismatic investors. Metal composition analysis also plays a pivotal role, because if a 1990-60 penny deviates from standard copper-zinc ratios due to contamination, experimental alloy, or misfed planchets, it becomes an irreplaceable record of production irregularity, and when coupled with other errors and mint-state condition, such deviations provide both objective scientific evidence and subjective aesthetic and historical interest, further cementing the coin's place among ultra-rare collectibles. The historical and economic context of 1996 reinforces the coin's allure, because the mint was responding to rising coin demand, technological innovations, and evolving collector interests, and coins that survived from this period with significant anomalies serve as snapshots of both industrial processes and the broader socio-economic climate, giving collectors a tangible connection to history, which adds another layer of desirability. When we look at the 1968 penny valued at $23 million, the 1989 no-mint mark penny at $12 million, and the 1990-60 penny at $10 million, and consider them together, the combined story becomes even more astonishing, because these coins illustrate the extraordinary potential of what many consider ordinary pocket change, showing how human error, industrial imperfection, and historical circumstances can converge to create objects of immense rarity and value, and while each coin has its own unique anomalies, whether it is dramatic double die errors, off-metal strikes, die cracks, mint mark anomalies, off-center strikes, or rare planchet compositions, the common thread is the principle that scarcity multiplied by condition and provenance produces staggering financial and cultural significance, and when we total their theoretical values, we reach an almost surreal sum of $45 million. A figure that is difficult to comprehend given that each of these coins started as legal tender worth 1 cent, emphasizing the power of collector psychology, rarity, and historical narrative in the world of numismatics, and highlighting how the smallest items can carry the largest impact, both financially and historically, and together these 3 coins form a narrative that inspires collectors to examine their own collections carefully, to research minting anomalies, and to appreciate the unpredictable ways in which chance and error can transform everyday objects into life-changing treasures, because whether it is the Denver-struck errors of 1968, the transitional no-mint mark rarities of 1989, or the mint mark D anomalies of 1996, each coin demonstrates that value is not only a matter of materials, but also of history, rarity, documentation, condition, and the imagination of collectors who see extraordinary potential in what most people overlook, and this combined perspective invites enthusiasts, investors, and casual coin holders alike to rethink the very nature of what a penny can represent, reminding us that sometimes the greatest fortunes are hidden in plain sight, in coins that sit quietly in drawers, jars, or pockets, waiting for discovery, authentication, and recognition. And when all 3 of these extraordinary coins are considered as part of a collective story, they not only illustrate the staggering monetary potential of rare pennies, but also underscore the enduring fascination with human error, minting history, and the unpredictable interplay between chance, scarcity, and value, demonstrating that in the world of numismatics, the line between the ordinary and the priceless is often thinner than we can imagine, and that with knowledge, luck, and a keen eye, even the smallest coin can transform into an object worth millions, inspiring wonder, excitement, and sometimes life-changing fortune for those who recognize its true worth.